Hello and welcome to the Executive Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alex Mearns, and today I'm going to be talking with Darren Brunton. And this is going to be very interesting to me because basically Darren is in his mid-60s and he does tons of things and he has so much vitality and I want to know why. So I'm going to give you a little bit of his background first, right? So he runs his own business. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's set up 5 businesses in Singapore since the 90s, a couple of which have failed. So he knows a thing or two about what works and what doesn't work. He's always traveling, right? He's always traveling. You know, I'm checking his social media posts. He's in Dubai, he's in Buenos Aires, he's in Vietnam. He's always traveling for work, for business or catching up with his friends. But when he's in Singapore, he doesn't just chill out. When he's in Singapore, I've seen again his social media posts. He's out, paddling on the canoe with Grant Axe Rawlinson, doing a 20-kilometer at 5 a.m. Or he's digging up trees, planting trees for charity. Or I often see him at networking events as well. He also, as well as doing all this, he coaches Levitise clients. So he helps our clients basically get their act together. People who are struggling in the corporate world, or maybe they want to leave the corporate world. Maybe they want to set up their own businesses, so we can help them with that. So like I say, he's in his mid-60s and he's got the vitality of a 20-year-old, or indeed, more vitality than many 20-year-olds that I know. So welcome, Darren.
Oh, thank you very much.
So the first question is, where does your enthusiasm come from? Where does your vitality come from?
That's a very good question. And as you summarised what I do, very rarely I sit back and reflect on what you do. I just get on and do it. So where does that come from? Yeah. That's a good question. I think it's a lot of passion and drive in what you've got to do and what you achieve. And also, you mentioned travelling. I do a lot of travelling for business. And yes, actually this weekend I'm off to Vietnam, then I'm off to Dubai, and then I'm off to China in the next 2 weeks. And you see my social media, I'm in Brazil and all the rest of it. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of that because you do your business, but you also make a difference and you can influence people and influence the communities you're in. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of being able to help other people and influence people's and companies, actually. So it's their way to do things. Maybe it's for the better. Maybe they need to relook at what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But that goes for individuals as well as companies. So, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, I guess, personally. But it's not just about me either. It's about my team. So you say I've had 5 companies. Yeah, so now I've got 2 very busy companies in Singapore, and I'm partnering one in UK. And that keeps me really active. Yeah. And of course, my family.
Yeah.
So family plays a large part of that. My wife is Singaporean. My daughter's Singaporean. She's away at school or university at the moment in Switzerland. So influencing others in what they can do, supporting the team, because they've all got their own lives and livelihoods, so supporting them. And obviously my family as well.
Yeah.
So priority.
Yeah, that's very interesting because you said right at the beginning, we don't know what you do for a living, but you said right at the beginning, you're interested in making a difference, helping other people and influencing people positively. And we know that, being helpful in the community makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you boost your energy levels, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you, so I'm sure that's a big part of it.
But I think we've all been through it, where we go through the tired, we go through the, just doing the same stuff or whatever it may be. And a lot of it, we end up with bad diets. I know you're a dietitian or you work on diets and fitness. So I've been through all that. And then when you mentioned about going out with doing lots of exercises, I was out doing 10K this morning at 5:30. Yesterday I was kayaking at 6:30. So it's working with people or on my own on that, and it develops I don't like to call it mental health, I like to call it mind health. The mind and body, for me, really synergize. So periods of time in my life, I've gone through periods where I haven't exercised a lot. Like during COVID lockdown, everybody was out doing their own things. I managed to get out and do a lot of exercise. And as soon as COVID was over or drifted away, I got very busy. So my exercises started to decline. And then 2 months ago, Grant invited me to be part of a challenge or an adventure in Thailand, which involves 350 kilometers over 6 days. And at that time, I was doing like about 12 kilometers a week walking. And this week, I've done 168 kilometers walking, cycling, and kayaking. So it increases having a passion, having a drive to do something and do it in small bits, small bite chunks. It increases your health, my health, personal health, but your mind, my mind, in what I'm doing, and gives me more drive to actually do stuff.
Yeah.
And without that, I've been through the physical, non-physical parts of life, and when I drop off the physical aspect of life, I do feel a difference in myself and what I do and what I can achieve.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree. Every Wednesday, I go to the running track at MOE.
Yeah.
Running track, and I hate it. I hate cardiovascular exercise. I'm all fast twitch muscles, but I do it, and I force myself to do it. And the difference, the mental differences afterwards, before and after, is huge. I just feel so good afterwards, probably because it's over. But no, I just feel really good, alive, and I start getting this like flood of ideas, like creative ideas. Suddenly go, oh, that's a great social media post. I should do that. Oh, this would be a really interesting blog. Or that's going to be my next podcast. And it just, I know the universe just dumps all this stuff in my brain. And that really fires me up. So I'm totally with you.
So when I'm out walking, I don't run anymore due to various injuries. But when I'm out walking or exercising, you're right. For me and yourself, by the sound of it, your mind opens up, and sometimes I have to send myself an email while I'm out walking to remind myself what I've just thought about and what I'm going to do. Yeah. Or I'll send a WhatsApp message or something to somebody to make sure it's going to happen. So it opens up ideas and many things. When exercising, it opens your mind up. Yeah. And you mentioned there you don't like doing it, but that's a challenge, right? We all face things that we don't want to do, but when we've done it, like you said, you feel so much better. And that's exactly, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I never used to be able to do that, but now it's just becoming a natural thing I do to get out and do that exercise before the world starts.
Yes. So do you think then, by doing things that you don't want to do on the exercise side of things, it helps do the bits in the business that maybe you don't want to do?
Oh, definitely.
Because generally there's always there's always exciting bits of the business, but there's a lot of stuff which is like, well, we've got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I mean, whatever you do in life or in business, there'll be things that you don't like to do. But it's when you achieve those don't likes, it enables you to move forward onto much bigger things. Yeah. And if you roadblock those things that you don't like to do, you'll never move forward and never achieve that positivity that you need to have. So, you're right. I didn't say what I do, right? Yeah,
we'll get there. We'll get there. Well, maybe with the next one, right? Because I'm interested in, again, you talk very positively about what you do in business and that you like working with people and helping people. So a lot of people talk about finding their ikigai these days, which is the Japanese word, which means life and alive, right? And it really signifies your purpose in life and what you're looking to do. And I would say, and you'll know this, many of the people we've worked with, the majority of people we've worked with, one of the problems is they don't really enjoy what they do for a living, which is basically what they do for most of their waking hour. I mean, not to sort of kick anyone in the nuts, but, does anyone really dream of being sort of head of, global transaction services and custody at, big bank X, Y, and Z? Is that what you wanted to do when you were 7? Didn't you want to be an astronaut? You know what I mean? It's like, so we see that as a big problem. So do you feel you've sort of found your ikigai with regards to sort of the businesses you run and what they do? Did it develop over time, or did you think that's what I'm going to do? And you also just if you can throw this in as well, you had a couple of failed businesses. I'm wondering did they not match your ikigai? Yeah. So maybe give you all your thoughts around that. There's quite a lot to
if you go back to you say when you're a boy or at school, you sort of dream job being an astronaut, but you end up being a banker or head of banking or whatever. Was that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I can quite proudly say, I remember vividly my school kid, my teacher at junior school was a lady called Mrs. Bryce, and she asked us to sit down and draw what we want to be when we grow up. So I remember drawing an army guy with a commando beret on it, and with that I also drew a commercial diver. I wish I had that drawing still, but I don't. So, and that's exactly what happened in my life.
That's amazing.
I actually left school at 16 and joined the army. And at 20, I actually transferred into commando forces. And then I became a military diver at 19 years old. And when I left the military, I became a commercial diver. So my career has been my schoolboy dream, if you like. And then I've turned that into entrepreneurship by 22 years in business now. And that business is aligned to my passion of diving. So, and it links back again because during my career as a commercial diver and in the military, I was nearly killed a few times. So in the military, that's another story. But in the commercial industry, diving, it's all about health and safety in the workplace. So then I took on a passion of being a safety and making the commercial diving or any industry safer for the workers and the companies themselves. So that's part of my business and what we do as a team in both companies. One's a training company, one's a consultancy company. So the passion is still there, and it's all stemmed from that schoolboy dream, if you like. And I take the lessons learned through that military, commercial industry, working as a commercial diver, and still involved in that industry sector, into what I do now. And that's a passion and the purpose, if you like. Sometimes you drift off, though, and you think, wow, is that, and especially when you're surrounded by people who are negative or have different ideas. So you've got to stay true to your purpose and your passion.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think it seems like you found the sweet spot, knowing that your business is very successful, between what your passion is and what brings in the revenue. And then you've got that sort of Venn diagram where you kind of cross over here.
And some people
and make it viable,
have passions, but when you look at it, how can it become a commercial model? And sometimes they can be, but with certain thinking and ways of doing it. But some will have a passion that can't be necessarily a commercial model. So you've got to really analyze that, or sit down with somebody who's been through this experience and understand there are different lanes in what you can do. See, there's, in what I do and what we do as a company, we have many lanes. If we were just one service or even two services, we wouldn't have survived SARS, MERS, financial crashes, and the rest of it, COVID. We've been through so many negative periods in global environment. So you have to have many pillars or many lanes in your business to be able to support that and have the right team.
Earlier on you mentioned, not many people know this, but you were in the military. And you mentioned you were in war with, when Great Britain went to war with Argentina in 1982 over the Falklands Islands. Not sure many people will be familiar with that in Asia. But it's over 1,000 people were killed on both sides, so it was quite a significant event. Do you think being in sort of military operations, and you mentioned you were almost killed a couple of times, did that help reframe your mindset around what real stress is and the kind of stress that people feel in today's developed and very safe societies? For example, in Singapore, people stress over upgrading their Toyota to a Mercedes or their HDB to a condo, or chicken rice is at 50 cents more expensive than it was last week. But I suspect you've seen slightly more stressful.
I mean, everybody has, I think. We all live with shadows or whatever you may want to call it. I mean, I don't know a lot of the personal things you've been through and the people on the street. But certainly when you've been through those life-changing events, like some of the ones I have been, and unfortunately in today's world there's many more situations that are probably much worse. But when you go through that, and we were predominantly 20 years old at that time, but that's the job we signed up for. we signed up in the military back in those days, and you were ready to go and do exactly that. When you've done that, it's like, well, okay, been there, done that. It's some carry on, obviously, and that's what they do for their career. I spent 12, 14 years in the military, and then it was time for a change for me. But it certainly gives you a perspective on life, and I think that's one of the driving factors. In fact, my brother tells me it is a massive influence in what I do and how I do things, and I'm sure other people may say the same. Because if you've been next to people who didn't come home, you've got that advantage, obviously a massive advantage, to able to contribute where they didn't. And I hold that quite close.
Yeah. And do you think being in the military, how did it shape your entrepreneurial journey? I mean, you are just to be clear, you run a successful health and safety diving or commercial diving training operation. And I know my friend who's a commercial diver. He's always off on rigs in the Middle East. Comes down to Singapore to train at your school for his. Yeah, that's great. So I'm familiar with it from friends that do it. But so you run a very successful business, and it's very much focused on health and safety. Did your time in the military help?
Definitely. I mean, a lot of military veterans today, they leave the military and go in health and safety because it's a lot what you're trained in to do in the military. It's disciplined. Or should be disciplined, and it's a passion. It's about influence people to make a difference in the workplace, so people can go home and work safely. So, although I wasn't aware of all that back in the early days, it's developed over my career path, and now other people basically do that much the same when they leave the forces if they want a career in health and safety. But for me personally, my military career definitely did shape what I do now. I think if you ask a lot of my employees, they may say I'm a very military clockwork type person, so it does play an influence on what happens in my business and in my lifestyle.
Well, I know when we meet for coffee, you say things like ETA 0800, which is very military.
It gives me a grounding because it gives you that, another thing, you should never forget where you come from. Too many people do that. They become successful, or they think they're successful, but they forget about the people, the organizations, and how they actually got to where they are. Yeah. And you've got to stay grounded in business and in life. In our training company, we've trained over 40,000 people globally, and some are now, they were commercial divers, now they work in major energy companies as senior influencers in their own area. Some are in banking, some are in airline industry. So across the whole range of multiple industries that have progressed in their careers and become managers, leaders in their own right. So it's about influencing, providing opportunities, making sure they understand health and safety as they do that, leadership. But going back to the military side, yes, definitely. I think most of if anybody's watching this from my past, they will know and understand where I am today. They will say the military aspect. My 14 years in the military played a significant part. Yeah. And I say 14 because I actually joined when I was 16, and the first 2 years is like they called boy service, but you're serving in the military, and then I did another 12 years on top of that.
You've had 5 businesses in Singapore, 2 of which have not been successful. People that are watching this, that are thinking about doing something on their own, already doing something, thinking of leaving corporate, or maybe they've already left and they're looking for some help, maybe from a business coach like yourself to help structure their business a little bit. What have you learned in your years of running businesses and failed businesses that can help people? What are the typical blind spots that you see where people struggle with? So, for example, we worked with somebody recently, right, who was left corporate and moved to Dubai to set up his own business. Yeah,
and he's doing really well. Yes. I've gone to visit him, and it's great to see that success. Yeah. But he's finding challenges as well because you're wrapped up in a corporate world where you're very protected in the systems. And when you step outside that and you are the system and you control and manage it, then there's a lot of new things that you're not fully aware of that approach you, like renting property, dealing with landlords and banks, etc., as a loan or business financing. So my failed businesses, I don't really look at their lessons learned in the sense that they didn't work out for various reasons, mainly because they were like a subsidiary of the competence area which I am, or my business, or somebody in my business are, but necessarily the support wasn't provided to that because we were focusing more on another line of business. One of the businesses didn't work out due to, it did survive COVID, but then different contractual requirements driven by clients basically made it, and that particular industry sector became so competitive it just wasn't worth. And it's knowing when to pull the plug. That's a very important aspect of it. Okay, you've made money, you've lost money, whatever it may be, but is your passion still in there, and can you still drive it? When I was waking up each day focusing on this business because it was particularly in trouble at that point of time, and it just became a point of, okay, no, I need to close this now, focus on this, which is more positive and more successful, and can be driven to that success. So it's important to know when to pull the plug or make that change. The other business, we actually wasn't so much failed, we just merged it into one of the other companies that we've got. So it actually grew the first company by merging the two together. Instead of keeping the different companies separate, they were similar in lanes of what they provided for. So we just merged that one into the training company, actually.
Yeah. Something you said in there I really picked up on, where you said, is your passion still there? And is it successful in business? And that made me quickly reflect on my own business. And I thought about when I started, I wanted to do a lot of work on nutrition. And I was, and still am, very passionate about nutrition. But what's interesting from a revenue perspective is it's not great.
Yeah.
And actually what I realized that most of the clients we worked with, they're smart enough to do most of it on their own. And all the answers are on the internet. Now it's all on ChatGPT, right? Yeah. They could do 80, 90%. They've got the knowledge already, right? I could come in and tweak, but they already need it. So it's not great from a revenue perspective. And then I realized what other nutritionists do to make it successful is to sell, $1,000, $2,000 worth of supplements. But I don't believe in supplements, so I can't do it. It would be completely against. And then I'd be like, well, then I'm not passionate about it. Then I might just go back into banking if it's just about making money, right, for the sake of it. So, yeah, so it's very, very interesting. But you certainly seem to have hit the nail on the head.
But sometimes you've got the passion and it's something you want to do, like nutrition. But there are so much competition in that area.
Yes.
So, but you will probably have a certain skill set and knowledge that others don't, or you can tweak it for another lane that's related to nutrition. And so it's not all just one lane in nutrition sort of thing, Yes. It's how you can use that and manipulate. I mean, we've trained our competition. See, that's the other thing, right? Yes. You train individuals, or they come and work for you, then they go and set up their own businesses. Some are successful, some realize it's harder than what they think, so it's not so successful. But you've got to be aware of that sort of element. And then how do you work or relate to that competition? So, the one big failed business we have, it's still my passion. It's commercial diving, but we do it in a different way, in a different service, instead of the service that was very competitive and still is. So now we support that service, and which is what we were doing before as well. So, yeah, it's just understanding and then taking your purpose and your passion. Everybody talks about purpose and passion, but how can you actually use that and tweak it for what you want to do, and keep that drive? You talked about my vitality. Is it vitality?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so
enthusiasm and vitality.
Enthusiasm. Well, I think the enthusiasm comes from the people I work with, the team, and the people we work for, because without them requiring what we have as a service and how we can enhance what they're going to do, like hopefully we're working with some clients overseas in Asia at the moment, and as far away as Brazil, and we've seen them go from down here, if you like, to up here, and they are so pleased and happy, and it enables them to get more contracts, more work safely, so everybody benefits. And watching that and seeing that happen, I like to call it covert or overt operations. A lot of people don't know what we do behind the scenes until much later, so that's a covert operation. We go in, do it covertly, don't even market and tell people about it. Industry find out about in their own way, but then the success is there. And then if we actually want to tell people about it, it becomes an overt operation task. And then we're proud to say we've done it. We're always proud that it's happened, but it's where we say, did we do this or did we just do it, but not let anybody know and just let people see the joy out of it and get the pleasure that we were very proud to be part of that. Too many people are very boastful and overly so, and then that doesn't help.
Yeah, I don't think it matters if people know what is going on behind the scenes or not, as long as they get a positive outcome from how you help them.
So, and that plays a lot of a part in how we operate as a company as well.
So if I'm thinking of leaving the corporate world and setting up my own business, or maybe just starting out, and I came to you as a executive coach or a business coach to help me, what sort of tips would you give, or what advice, or how would you get people to start thinking about setting things up? Because obviously people would have a passion, but it may not have some grounded reality associated with it. So what do you?
I think I'd like to know why they are not happy where they are, and find out what the problems are, so then they cannot be carried forward, or they can be resolved and sort of discussed and managed going out into whatever they think they will next want to do. And then it's understanding, well, there will be a passion of what they think they want to do, but again, is that passion a hobby? Some hobbies can be turned into a commercial aspect, or is it just going to be a hobby? And then what outcomes do they actually want to do? Is it set up their own business, or maybe move to a different job within the same industry, or a different job within a different industry, or the same job in a different industry? So it's understanding what they actually want and what their goals may be. And then over time, because it's not going to happen in one or two sessions or periods, understand that and go down deeper, and then find out how they can support themselves to do it with certain support and guidance from people who've been there and done that. There's many people out there that say, yes, I can help you out, but they often haven't walked the talk, as you say. Been there, done that. They may have been there and done it in certain aspects, but not necessarily all-encompassing or fully to what that individual's needs may be. And you've also got to remember, somebody may come to me as a coach or an advisor, but in conversation we may not gel together, and he may not think I can support him, or I may think, or her, might be vice versa. So that's an understanding. Well, are we both comfortable that we can work together, and personally that I can help you to achieve your outcomes and your goals? So without that, and it may not be found out the first session or the second session, but we've got to have that understanding that at some point in time, if it's not working out, but generally it's not like that for me. I try and help everybody that I possibly can.
Yeah, considering your military background, you come across very sweetly, Darren, and not at all like the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket. No, that's brilliant. I've written them down, so I'm going to repeat them real quickly. I've got 5 things here. 1, what are the current problems so we don't repeat them? 2, is your passion a hobby or can it be commercialized? 3, what outcomes do you want? What are your expectations? 4, how can you support yourself in this business? Which is very interesting. It's not like we don't want to be your permanent walking stick. Ultimately, you've got to go and do it on your own, right? But how can we support you get to that stage? And obviously, the 5th thing, are we compatible as a coach? Yeah, that's fantastic. No, that's really exciting. That's really good. And we haven't done any prep for this, so you had no idea I was going to ask you that
I have
question.
no idea.
Yeah, I don't give anyone any prep in advance because I want to keep things as natural.
I was running
as
late coming here as well, so I was really flustered.
No, those are super. Okay, great. So let's wrap up, right? And I always ask this question to everyone: what are your top 3 health and fitness tips for our audience?
Oh wow!
Yeah. And it can be anything: physical health, wellness, mindset, whatever. What are your top 3 tips?
Well, you said I'm in my mid-60s, so yes. In fact, I'm 63. So I see a lot of people out running, and it's great to see them out running, but they're also very much overweight. And I see that, and all I really would like to do is go up to them and say, hey, stop. Because I've been there and done that, in a sense, not being overweight and trained, but training, carrying lots of weight. And it doesn't do your bones, your back, a lot of good at that point in time, and you will suffer later on. So you've got to be conscious about what you're doing. And your diet is obviously going to be very important. And we see today, when I first came to Singapore, there was no McDonald's, not a lot of fast food. There's a lot of fast food now. Yeah. So being very careful on your diet and what you eat is very important. But it's not all be all and end all. I still have chocolate and lots of good things every day because it's what I want to do, right? But managing that in exercise. So you talked about you didn't enjoy going to the
running track.
Track. So we all are going to go over that hurdle of, do I really have to get up and do this, or do I really need to go out and do that? But once you get over it, for me, once I get over that, and I'm over that cycle now from my last not doing exercises, I just look forward to getting up and going out for the exercise the next day. So it's an adrenaline push, if you like. So getting over that that challenge of doing something you don't like, but you know it's going to make you feel better, and think about how you're going to feel after it. And it's going to take a couple of weeks to get over that and actually get that body and mind aligned again. So there's 2, right? Obviously, diet's important, but not the be-all and end-all. But it, again, depends on your age, because the younger you are, the more you exercise, the faster your metabolic rate is. So you will not necessarily need to exercise so much to keep the weight off, but keeping your muscles and your physically fit is very important. And the variety. I tend to just walk, but now because I'm walking, kayaking and cycling, I haven't been on a bicycle for probably, I've lived in Singapore 33 years. I've been on a bike once, and that was with Grant, Axe again. We did 100K, just out of the blue. He said, come on 100K with me. I said, oh, God, okay. So I did, and I hated it. So when he said we've got to cycle 2 lengths, of one of 110 and one of 80 kilometers on this adventure we're doing, I wasn't very excited. I've managed to get a really nice bike off a friend, lend me his bike, and I've been out cycling 5 times now. And I didn't enjoy the first 2, but now I'm into it, and I'm doing 33 kilometers in an hour and a half, which is pretty good for me. So don't worry about, I don't want to do this. Just work through that and have the variety of your training as well. Yeah, no, those are great. I've actually got 4 points I've written down from here. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd love to comment on them, because one is being conscious of what you're doing. I think that's really important. A lot of people almost default to exercise like they default to their job without really thinking about it. Running is like, okay, I'll just strap on a pair of trainers and go out and run. It's quite easy to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. And if you only run, it's not necessarily holistic. I mean, personally, we like to mix up strength training, cardiovascular training, and maybe a little HIIT, like sprinting if you can. I think what's interesting about running, and if you have a bad posture and you're older, then running is really bad for you because you're just compounding your postural issues, your problems, ankles, knees, hips, etc. What I think is very interesting about running is that there's actually kind of meditative benefits after about 30 minutes where your brain just kind of shuts down and you go into this sort of mindful/mindless state.
That's what I miss.
Yeah. But for me, you can get that by meditating.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. So I like, for me, exercise and meditation are kind of separate, but I am mindful when I exercise, right? So I don't listen to podcasts or anything. I focus on the exercise. So I think that's really interesting what you said. And I guess the positive is there's alternatives out there if you don't like running.
Yes.
Right? There's other things you can do.
I mean, a lot of people go to gyms, and I know you've got a gym, but for me, the gym is outside. I would make use of the bus stops. I do press-ups at bus stops or sit-ups at bus stops or the benches in the park. And you're outside and you're enjoying the chickens in the park or whatever may be there nowadays. Yeah. But my gym is the outside world, that's what I like to say. And we were kayaking yesterday morning, and I was exhausted. I was really tired during the day. Yeah. So you got to work through that. So I got up at 5:30 this morning, went for a long walk. Yeah. And I'll do the same tomorrow. But it's how you want to get your mind and body in a state of goodness. And then that's what drives me in business as well.
Yes.
Another thing that drives me in business.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And definitely for me, if I don't do any exercise for a week, I start feeling grumpy.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, being conscious, the diet obviously important, and I've been here for 25 years in Singapore, and I've seen the ultra processed and processed food industry just go through the roof. Yeah, and you can see the size of Singaporeans get bigger.
That's everybody.
The diabetes is really, really high here. It's really bad. So, and I think that that's one of the great things about exercise. Not that the exercise, I don't really think the point of exercise is to burn calories, but when you are exercising, you tend to make better choices in everything else that you do in life. Going to bed earlier, making better food choices. And because you're flooding your brains with happy brain chemicals, endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, etc., you're just going to feel better.
For sure.
So that's another thing I like about exercise. So those are great, really fantastic tips. It's been great to have you on.
Well, the other thing, it's not rocket science, right?
Yes.
What I just said and what you're saying
exactly.
there, it's not rocket science.
No.
So, but sometimes it does take somebody to help encourage you come along and to do that and do it not necessarily on your own, but with a friend or with a team. So I like training on my own sometimes, and then I like training with some friends when we go out and do the training for this adventure in Thailand. But everybody's different. But without talking to somebody and understanding it, then
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to plug my own business after you said that, because actually this is what we found. So we do movement assessments at Levitise, where it's like, well, we don't really care. Actually, what you want to do right now, we need to assess you. We need to see where you're at right now. Okay, this is where you're at. This is what you want to do. And what we found is by helping people or structure an exercise program around where their deficiencies are, people have weak bits, tight bits, imbalanced bits, and then saying, we're going to do this exercise because it's going to help with this. People really like that. Oh. They like the fact that you're actually focused, rather than putting them through some sort of cookie cutter, bodybuilding type routine.
Yeah.
So, I'm with you. Awesome. Anyway, that's been brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Cheers.